Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce to you one of the artists whose works are included in the Museum of Humor and Satire in Gabrovo, Bulgaria. The artist we are going to concentrate on is the Czech documentary photographer František Dostal. At this point, you may be surprised to learn that some photographs should be included in a museum collection on humor. After all, when we think of visual humor and satire, what we typically have in mind are cartoons, images, and drawings. Such genres have been cultivated for centuries as a form of social criticism, political commentary, and everyday amusement. In the case of such genres, humor is the result of the connection of one's wit and artistic skills. Photographs are much less established as a form of humorous communication. Yet, nowadays, funny photographs are all over the internet. You may just want to check your own social media networks. We keep receiving them from our friends on an almost daily basis, whether they be funny photos of cats and babies, pranks played on unsuspecting people, or unexpected snapshots of funny scenes and cringe situations. We tend to think of such photographs as essentially disposable visuals, or even consumables. They entertain us for a while, make us smile. We might share them by reposting them to our friends or adding a funny comment, and then move on with our lives. That such images might be worth saving and ending up on display in a museum is typically not a thought that would cross our minds. However, let us look at the following black and white photograph by František Dostal. I think that many people will agree that it does contain a humorous element. The photo is titled very simply, The Reader. It shows a newspaper with the head of a dog behind it, giving the impression that the dog is reading the newspaper, although we can see that the page is being held by a human hand. Obviously, the face of the dog owner is hidden behind the newspaper, giving rise to the incongruous combination which is unexpected and thus playfully humorous. It is this kind of mild, almost incidental and harmless humor that Dostal is known for. The author, František Dostal, was a Czech amateur photographer. He studied engineering and worked as a constructor at the Škoda Corporation in Prague. His interest in photography arose in a rather unusual, and one might say funny, context, which was directly related to his profession. In his job, photography, or more specifically X-ray photography, was used to check the quality of welds on construction machinery. Dostal took up amateur photography around 1960 at the age of 22. He concentrated on documentary photography of everyday life. His first photograph was published in 1964 in the lifestyle magazine Květy, and he quickly secured his position among the most prominent Czech photographers, documenting some of the key and definitely serious events of his era, including the 1968 occupation of Czechoslovakia. It was from 1975 to 1989 that he created the bulk of his work, which was shown at over 30 exhibitions in his country and abroad. His work was published regularly in the Czechoslovak press and earned him much popularity. In 2008, he was awarded a prestigious prize of the Ministry of Culture of the Czech Republic for lifelong contribution to amateur photography. The work that he is best remembered for is a series of photographs taken from 1968 to 1990 in various rural locations in Bohemia, and this is also where many of his humorous themes come from. The series was called rather simply Summer People, Letní lidé in Czech, and captured snapshots of ordinary people enjoying free time activities. The photographs are characterized by frequent unexpected juxtapositions of people, animals, and various objects. That is the case with Bon Appetit, where the focus is on a dog enviously gazing at a lady having a snack in a refreshment stand. Similar juxtapositions occur in the photograph Legs, where three pairs of legs of a male horse rider, a young woman, and a racing horse are shown from an unusual perspective. Upon a closer look, we spot that the woman is holding the horse's bridle, while the rider has a whip in his hand. Although the photograph appears to show a static image, the vagueness and indeterminacy of the content invites us to seek meaning, and perhaps interpret the snapshot as a part of a larger story, an event, or even a relationship. Dostál's photographs tend to contain some incongruous element, which is crucial for the amusing effect of the images and our humorous reading of what is going on in the snapshot. Attention to the incongruous element is often brought by photo titles, which help to cue the context necessary for our perception of the humorous effect. For instance, in the photograph The Viewers, we see an undressed man in a swimsuit standing in the snow among a group of viewers, probably fans at some winter skiing competition. The man's presence in the photo is humorously incongruous. We are faced with a strange mystery. The image raises more questions than it gives answers. In Two Loves, there is a wedding scene showing a bride being accompanied by the bridegroom, or possibly a musician, carrying a bass. The English title of the photograph, Two Loves, cues the humorous interpretation, possibly in terms of the bridegroom's indecision and the possible future complications in the couple's marital life. The original Czech title of the photograph is somewhat different. It is called A Heavy Burden, which appears to be intentionally ambiguous or metaphorical. In a literal sense, it refers to the heavy musical instrument. But in a metaphorical sense, it can be read as a prophetic statement about the couple's future, or even the photographer's commentary on the institution of marriage. Dostál's photographs tend to come in thematic groups or sets. Often, one humorous theme is echoed across several images. As regards wedding scenes, for instance, we find a similar idea in another photo, this time titled Two Weights. Here we are invited to infer that the first, metaphorical weight, is the bride, and the second, literal weight, is the ball and chain that the man is dragging behind him. Once again, the humor consists in the ambivalence of what a marriage may mean to the bridegroom. While marriage may culturally be sometimes seen as the end of one's freedom, the huge ball and chain clearly evoke the script of a criminal punishment, thus metaphorically likening marriage to prison. As we have already seen, the titles of Dostál's photographs are intentionally simple, one could even say minimalistic. The titles are sometimes used as punchlines of the visual humor, or as triggers of the potential humorous effect. For instance, in Surprise, we are shown a wedding, where a group of small children stand in front of the bride. We are left wondering who the children belong to and whose surprise we are witnessing. The couples, the bridegrooms, the viewers? Clearly, there are ambiguities present in the image and in the semantic interplay between the image and the title. And those ambiguities force us to consider other possible interpretations to what probably originally emerged as a case of situational humor, when the newlyweds happened to encounter a group of children from a kindergarten somewhere in the streets. The title Surprise is also used for this photograph, which shows an old man with a funny wisp of hair blowing in the wind, gazing intently, in a surprise, at his beer. It is hard to pin down what makes this particular image funny. It is mildly amusing in how the man is depicted, but in spite of that, he is still presented in a dignified manner and not as a caricature. We can't help but smile at the scene and appreciate the photographer's skill in capturing such a fleeting moment. Another photo with a minimalistic headline is Motorization, which shows a woman walking down a street with two car wheels in her hands. Here, the title is an almost ironic commentary on the technical developments in the 1970s. Interestingly, the original Czech title is a bit different. It is called The Mechanic's Daughter. Here, we spot the humorous element in the incongruity of the lady's role and her behavior. As a mechanic's daughter, she can be presumed to have access to a car, which was still a luxury in the 1970s Czechoslovakia. Yet, the image shows her walking and carrying spare parts for a car. Inevitably, this image brings to mind the proverb, "The shoemaker's children go barefoot," which may be intertextually alluded to through the title. In any case, the image also illustrates how we may construe the humorous meaning differently depending on the caption given to the photograph. The English motorization and the Czech the mechanic's daughter give us two related yet slightly different readings of the underlying humorous intent. With many of the humorous photographs, we see that Dostál did not provide us with en face images. Instead, he photographed the people from the back. The people are thus presented not as specific individuals. That is, they do not possess some recognizable identity of who they are. Instead, people are treated generically as types or examples and as depersonalized entities rather than real people. This form of generic visual representation, which we have already seen with some of the wedding photographs above, is typical of Dostál's world, which merges aspects of documentary photography, artistic expression, and humorous content. Arguably, the key to Dostál's photography is rather paradoxical. They are snapshots of scenes of everyday life that are sufficiently generic and vague as to allow us to identify with the ordinary protagonists. Yet, while the photos themselves remain semantically elusive, they are very successful in drawing us into the narrative. They invite us to look for meanings and reconstruct the possible stories of which they give us only very selective segments. To modern-day audiences, the black and white humorous photographs are not just reminiscences of a bygone era. Some people will find them nostalgically familiar. Others will see them as strangely peculiar. Where international viewers will appreciate the artistic precision and the subtle humor in the photos, Czech viewers will also spot in them the quintessential nature of Czechness, the non-glamorous perception of ourselves, the self-mocking and ironizing attitude, and the playful and irreverent sense of humor, capitalizing on all kinds of weird and funny incongruities that emerge from our banal, everyday existence.